Sam, how are you this morning?
I am good. How are you guys?
I understand congratulations are in order. Did you hit a hole in one?
I did. Yeah. Yep.
Attaboy.
I had one. It was one of the stranger hole in ones you'll probably ever see. It was on a par 3, and I used a driver because the wind was blowing in our face off a lake in northeast Nebraska, but it counts all the same.
Sam, I keep getting all these messages, and the talk is fun, and seeing some of these guys run and jump. And so the question everybody asks is right after everybody leaves is, how soon before we can reap the benefits? And I'm like, they already are. Like, we're good, you guys. This is step one in something that was pretty spectacular and well ran and had a good vibe. Like, don't you think Nebraska's already winning?
Yeah. So what I often tell people is that you put these events on. The goal is not to excite. Well, maybe the goal would be to excite literally everybody that's there, but a reasonable expectation is that you're going to bring all these kids to Nebraska, and there's going to be a handful of them that are like, yeah, I want to play here. And it's not going to be all of them. It's going to be 4, 5, 6. You don't need 50 guys to want to come to Nebraska. You need a handful of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this, and Nebraska believes this. I know, Rule and his team, Elza and all them believe you have to want to come to Nebraska. So they don't bring you in and lie to you and do a bunch of stuff that gets you to commit a year and a half before you're going to play football there. What they do is come and see it. We'll kind of sense we're going to determine whether you're a fit. You're going to determine whether we're a fit. And we're going to begin the relationship. And then the relationship will usually go on a while. And then eventually those result in some commits. And the goal is to get guys that actually want to be here. And there have been recruiting. There have been administrations at Nebraska where they got guys to commit that either decommitted before they ever got here, or they really didn't like it once they got here because the goal was just to get a guy on a board. That's not the way that Nebraska's got to recruit. With transfer portal kids, that's kind of how it goes. It's a fast date, and you just hope you get it right. But when it comes to the high school kids, they really want those kids to want to be here. And so I'm sure over the weekend they identified some guys that they really want because of their playing skills and their personality. And then vice versa, there were some players that were like, I like this place. I like Nebraska. I like the training table. I like the way that everything feels. I like it more than I like Florida State, and those are the players that then become the relationships going forward. And then hopefully you get these teams coming back every year, whether or not those kids end up at Nebraska, they have a positive report of Nebraska. And that word of mouth spreads.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard it, but I was listening to, I believe it was one of the coaching staff talk about how it's as much important just to get guys going back to the places they're from, whether it's Florida or Texas or wherever, and talking about how cool Nebraska is, even if they never step foot on campus there. It's for, either the next generation of kids or the guys a couple classes down from now, or just the region in general, to at least have Nebraska front of mind again until the winning starts to come, right?
Yes. I mean, it's valuable when Travis Hunter goes on social media and says that Nebraska was the toughest place he played. I mean, there's a lot of kids that
they need to put that in. They need to put that in all their advertisements.
Right.
I'm serious in their highlight packages.
There's a lot of kids that admire Travis Hunter, and for him to say that is valuable. So, you're going to take word of mouth where you can get it. Again, then it comes down to fit. And I do feel like, Rule and his staff do a pretty good job of assessing fit. Transfer portal is different as I just explained, because you don't know entirely because you're doing a speed dating. But I think they do a nice job with the high school stuff, and we'll see. I think to some degree, Nebraska's got to win this year in order to attract some of these 27 and 28 guys. I know, like Ahmad Hudson came to Nebraska, and he's a 5-star football prospect, and he also wants to play college basketball. And
what's fun? What's funny about him is if you don't watch him hoop or watch him in 7-on-7, like if you just watch tape, you may not think he's elite enough athletically. He's much more interesting in person than on film for me.
That's possible. Yeah, I haven't watched him on film yet. But, you know, any guy like that, you're going to have to, you know, make the case on both sides.
He sure did like playing with Trey, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to play college basketball and college football today. And that doesn't – it never has been common. I know Donovan McNabb did it. And
Julius Peppers.
Maybe a few others. Yeah, it's very – and Tony Gonzalez. It's very uncommon. It's – so
and look at the names we're dropping. It's been 25 years.
Right. He's going to have to decide. My hunch is he'll have to make a decision because it's very, very hard to do both. So, you know, like, but that's an example of a player that you're probably going to have to win some games next year, like this coming season, you know, because he'll have offers to everywhere. But you made a good impression. And if you never got to make the first impression, then you never get to make the last one. So I think that's kind of the way they're proceeding. And I'm guessing they'll get at least one commit out of the visitors that just came through. Maybe more. I'm expecting them to get at least two, but they'll get at least one, and we'll see where things go from there.
That's interesting. I know I had to get back on Saturday night. Caleb had the recruiting dinner with CJ Brumbaugh and some of the guys, and he's an interesting. This is kind of an interesting case study, right? When you look at, it's all the things that Coach Rule kind of intimates and talks about, where Nebraska was in early. Hey, trust our eval. If this guy camps someplace else, you guys would, you know how he gets when Nebraska's first and they don't get a ton of respect, and then everybody else offers, and then it's like, see, I told you we're good at this. Mm-hmm. If he's a guy that they can keep in the fray after getting all this other attention and other offers post Nebraska, in the area that he's from, you think that makes any sort of statement about Nebraska necessarily, or hey, get used to this. This is probably going to be how it's going to go going forward.
Be a really good deal if they were able to. They've already kind of unlocked Miami, and this, you know, Ronald's from Orlando, so I think that would be another good land. You know, Florida gets a lot of its best players from that area. Florida State does too. That city's sort of split between three teams: Florida State, and then Scott Frost's school, UCF. And so, you know, like, it would be good. It would send a good message. Nebraska's occasionally gotten guys from Orlando. Kevin Maurice, for people who remember him. Victor Jones, who left after a year.
Yeah,
so
came and went.
Yeah, a lot of guys from that area don't necessarily come to Nebraska. But it would be good. It'd be good to get guys out of four spots down there: Miami, the Tampa area, Jacksonville, where Chris Jones, the former corner, came from, and then Orlando. Those are your four spots. You're gonna have a hard time anywhere west of Tallahassee. Usually, those guys are honestly going to Alabama, like the guys that are out in like Pensacola and stuff like that. So, or they're going to Florida State. Usually they don't go to Nebraska, but. I think those are good spots to be in. I'm sure they want to keep Ronan because they identified him and they put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this: Nebraska has done very well recruiting that position, both cornerback and defensive back in total. And I think they will be okay at that position for years to come. Almost not regardless of who they have in the class, but they do well there. They've got guys on their team right now who are going to play in the NFL and potentially get second and third contracts in the NFL. So they're doing well at the defensive back position. The ones that I watch, you know, edge rusher and defensive line and offensive line and, you know, receiver. And then I'm a big running back guy. Not everybody is. Some people are like, your running back can be just about anybody on the roster. I don't believe that. I think
I agree.
You have to get an elite one. And the kid they had come in this weekend is very good, and we'll see if Nebraska is able to wrest him away from one of the West Coast schools.
Yeah, I also like the kiddo they offered last week up in New Jersey too. So I like, the interesting thing, and I think we would get off Coach Barthel because he's clearly pretty good at development. I don't even think that's debatable, but I think if they could land one of these home run high profile guys, unfortunately, that's probably what it would take to validate him, because I think what he's doing with the guys that he's getting on campus is actually really good. I think the fan base, given Nebraska's history of running backs in the backfield, I, I just think we're awful tough on that because it hasn't been the big name home run, highly coveted guy.
Right. And that Nebraska used to get not only the guy from Omaha that was a little under the radar, but also the, Lawrence Phillips, the blue chip player as well. Yeah. I mean, I think
and contrary to popular belief, Nebraska wasn't getting those guys out of Omaha until they lost Larry Station. Right. So you don't get Larry Station, and people are upset that you don't recruit that school in that area the way you should. And so Coach Osborne takes it personal, and you make it an effort, and the rest was history. But it took some hiccups to get there, though.
That's a good story. Yeah, that's very true. Because Larry Station, I think, was 82.
Yes, absolutely true. And they used the fact that Coach Osborne in Nebraska were not comfortable coming to Central and to North Omaha to recruit, and Iowa used that against Nebraska. So that's 100% factual. And I think, and sometimes it just takes getting the guy or a guy to kind of jumpstart that thing.
Right. So, I think Barthel, I guess he's got to get somebody like that. I think once Mekhi Nelson gets the full offense under his belt and gets to play more, I think people will understand.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
What he brings to the table. I think that his recruitment was shaped by, I don't know. I think it was shaped by his grades. Like, I don't know exactly what happened at his high school in Wilkes-Barre, but he's a player that could be at Penn State.
And that's a tough find too, because one of the other things I like about him is he's quick to talk about where he's from. He does not associate himself with Philly because he wants his story to be a standalone where he's from, because guys where he's from don't get recruited like those guys that are in the city. So he takes that personal, and I like it.
Yeah, he's a good player, and so I think once he gets, now again, being a great running back at the collegiate level, if you're not like Adrian Peterson, it doesn't happen as fast as people think it does. Like, it's not that easy. And so, like, sometimes it's easy, I guess, but not very often. You got to be really, really good. And so it takes a year and a half or 2 years to develop into all the things that you need to be, especially today, because they're asking him to do so many different things. So, like, people need to be patient with him, but he's going to be a good player, a really good player in a couple of years. So maybe that'll be the guy that validates Barthel, because but maybe it's Emmett Johnson too. If Emmett Johnson has 1,500 total yards this year, you tip your hat to Ryan Held for recruiting Emmett Johnson, but you give Barthel the credit for developing him, because I don't think Emmett came here as that kind of player, and you credit obviously Emmett Johnson for that the most, but I think he kind of came here as a player that was going to be sort of a backup or a returner, and he's developed into more than that.
Hey, look at for laughs and giggles, Sam, look at Emmett year one when he first got here, some of those photos, and look at him like this week. I mean, you talk about growth and development. He looks like a completely different person.
He does. And, I think we're in alignment on this. I would rather take a guy that's a little shorter, and he's not that short, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's, a little shorter and needs a little weight versus the 6'2", 235-pound guy, and hope that he cuts, hope that he eats all the right things all the time. Like
you've got a former colleague that used to want to fight me over that. He's a big back guy, and I'm like, I like guys that can run. I don't care how. And typically, it isn't the big guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and some of that I think is shaped by Lawrence Phillips. Like, and again, he's unique, and there's a few of those out there, and I get that. There's a lot of people that have fondness for the big backs based on a handful of them. But the reality is, I'll take an Amir Abdullah any day.
And you know what? We got him by accident.
Right.
Which is funny.
Yeah,
a guy that's in everybody's top 5 or 6 was kind of an oh by the way. So there's multiple ways to skin the cat, right? You don't have to get these sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And that's, again, or Corey Ross, who wasn't a big guy. Like, I like guys that are hard to find in a pile, and they kind of come out of nowhere, and then they get off. They come out the other end, and you can't find them, and then you got to try to tackle somebody that's 5'7", and that's hard to do because you got to get low and all that. So, like, I like the little guys. Emmett's not little; he's 5'11" and 200 pounds.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're describing our guy at Westside who went for almost 1,800, who's absolutely incredible, but he's a little guy.
Right. Yeah, Emmett's not little. He's more of a maybe a slot receiver size, but I also know there's a romanticism around the giant backs. Like the guy that Minnesota had multiple times, but number 27, I can't remember his name, David something.
From Gophers?
Yeah. Mo Ibrahim was pretty big too, but they had a guy,
Ibrahim,
yeah.
David something, and he was like 6'2" and 230.
I
like those players too, but
you've even seen it here. Like, there was sort of this weird fascination with like Jaquez Yant for a minute, and like some of those
people tried to throw him. Never.
You know what I mean, though. But like, you see a big guy that can move at all, and you go, oh, you kind of get stars in your eyes a little bit.
I'm like,
right. Well, they have the Derrick Henry and the Eddie Lacy thing. And again, what I tell people is, I'm like, well, Derrick Henry and Eddie Lacy were the number 1 recruits in the country. So, and they didn't come to Nebraska. So, like, there's one of those guys.
And you still had to hope that Eddie Lacy would eat all the right things all the right times, because had still got it on top of him.
Right. I mean, Derrick Henry does all the right things.
Right. Yeah,
but Eddie Lacy did not. Yeah. So, like, I'm more of the, again, that guy that's maybe 5'10", or what is Cam Scatabo? What's his height? He's not real big, is he?
5'11".
5'11".
He's thicker, but he's not huge. Quietly, I don't know how quietly, but they got a guy kind of like you're talking about in this last class in Jamarion Parker. He's 6 foot tall, but he came in pretty lean.
And he's definitely not 6 foot.
And that dude can run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. He's fast. And again, it'll take him some time, I'm sure, to develop. And people have to be patient with that position. Rarely is a true freshman. And even if a true freshman has a number of big games, like David Horn did that one year, it doesn't guarantee that they've put everything together for subsequent years.
You know what it is? And one of our listeners brings up a good point. It even took Amir a little bit of time. The more your pass game evolves, the longer it takes young running backs to get into the system because of pass protection and blitz pickup. Like, it's just not. You don't get the Derrick Henry stories where he's like, man, Coach Saban, I said, they just pitched me the ball and said, run right, run left, right? And they're trying to teach him pass protection.
He's like, give me a minute.
He's like, I need some time here, like, to get this. So, and especially I think in Coach Holgerson's offense, where the running back is in multiple places and has to do multiple things, it's not easy. Like that's for sure, man. You have to be a little versatile.
Agreed. And I think Derrick Henry rolled through, I don't know what his senior year was, but he rolled through there before I think they completely modernized their offense. So they whenever they brought in Lane Kiffin, I don't know when Derrick Henry, maybe Lane Kiffin and Derrick Henry were there at the same time. But they kind of took it to a new level when Sarkisian got there, and then they started building their program around quarterbacks and receivers, and not just running the ball.
You know what's funny?
And
I quietly, I think it's a big year for Bama. We keep talking about a big year for all these other schools. This is a huge year for Bama.
It is.
I mean, you're coming off a quote unquote lowly 9-win season. It's like,
if they don't make the playoff, I think DeBoer gets fired. I really do.
That'd be incredible.
I don't think they're making the playoffs.
I don't either, but I think he's in real danger of getting fired this year, which is crazy because I think he's a really good coach. I don't know how good of a fit that is.
Mm.
But
you worried from the jump?
I did worry because I really like him.
I know.
But I also don't know who would have been a good fit to follow Saban. Like that's an almost impossible job. And I wonder how much I think I asked you this real time ago. I wonder how much self-awareness is like, hey, it's so much money and I'll get another shot. Like you almost have to
get while the getting's good.
You know, like there's
Sam, let me ask you something. Do you think Sweeney has, and now I'm not saying, because this year I think that they have every opportunity to play for a national championship. So don't fast forward to being in the finals. But does Clemson have another reset run in them for you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they're going to be good, and they'll make playoffs and things like that. But I think Dabo should go to Alabama if the job opens up again.
It's the only reason why I asked the Clemson next, because I think that's – but I don't know if he wants that monster either.
I also don't know if Dabo operates
That's what I thought they should have did last time, is they should have hired him and did whatever it took to get him because he understands the place.
I don't know if
I don't know, Sam.
I don't know if he operates the way they want to operate.
I don't know, man. That was a long time. That was a long time ago. It's different now. It's very transactional, and those are all the things that he allegedly does not like.
Maybe that's good for Alabama.
Yeah, he's built a good program at Clemson, and I don't anticipate, because they're in that league, I think it's going to be hard for them to consistently, elevate themselves.
Let me ask you.
You never know. Maybe they get the quarterback, and if they get the quarterback, they had two, great quarterbacks in a row, and then the rule of three. You almost never get a third one. You might get back-to-back great ones, but you rarely get three in a row. And then once that happens, and you build your program around quarterbacks, and then you don't get them, then you almost have to rethink it. And Ohio State is able to deal with not having a great quarterback because they have an incredible roster around them. But Ryan Day darn near got fired because they didn't have a guy after C.J. Stroud.
Let me ask you something real quick, Sam. Is there another college you could see Freeman going to other than Notre Dame?
Ohio State. Yeah, his alma mater. But that would require Ryan Day desiring to go to the NFL, which he could do at any time. I'm sure there would be a job waiting for him at any number of professional teams, because I actually think Ryan Day's temperament suits the NFL. I mean, I think it's a good marriage for the pros. And if Ryan Day left under those circumstances, and Ohio State came to Freeman and said, "Here is your chance to coach at the school where you played, and to walk the halls that you walked as a kid," I think that would be at least something to give him pause. The other school is USC, and depending on what USC wants to do, they have an incredible.
It's a big year for Riley because he's got that huge recruiting class in 26 that looks fantastic.
That could fall
apart. So they
hired
a GM from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So USC hired away Freeman's general manager, and some people, not a lot, think that was a pretext to he's going to stay, regardless of what Lincoln Riley does, because he's from out there. And so he's staying no matter what. He's so good, he's going to stay, and we'll pair him with a coach. And there's Marcus Freeman. And then there's, will Marcus Freeman decide to become an NFL coach?
Yeah.
Like he
might be in the Steel City.
He could do that. Well, he might be there, or he could if what's his face ever decides he wants to be a broadcaster, he could go to the Rams.
Yeah, McVay.
Yeah.
Because
that would be a great. Hey, that actually is better. That because in a similar vein, Freeman's young. His personality could run that building because that was everybody in that Rams organization said it's not McVay's brains. That's fantastic.
That's extra.
It's his culture. Like his DNA is all over that facility from every hire. Like that's the key for the Rams, at least as some of the people close to that organization tell it. It's not just his brains, man. It's his
Yeah.
It's his DNA. It's his
I believe
blueprint. It's his blueprint. Well, see, and this is people aren't going to be able to handle this really, but that's what excites me about Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because if that facility gets Coach Rule's competitive, loving DNA, they'll be just fine. You know, like that.
Yeah.
It's because I think there's power in it. Let me give you two more because I think they could come up, and I'm watching them closely. Washington's on the verge of maybe doing something good. People think very highly of Jed Fish.
Yeah, they should.
If Dillingham makes this repeatable in Arizona State, he's obviously going to be another hot commodity. Could you see those two guys on the upward ascent turning their programs around? Fish and Dillingham.
I think Dillingham's going to do that. Now, whether or not they get to the, playoff every other year status is probably dependent on whether they're able to get the players, which I actually think they're going to. The Big 12 is wide open, and it's open for somebody to take it.
Yeah.
And God bless Chris Kleiman. I just don't think he's going to be able to take it with the way they play, and they're going to be a solid 8-9 win team, but I don't think they can get to 11 every year. And they just don't play. Well, we saw it last year. They should have been a better team than they were last year, and they just weren't able to get over the hump. And so the Big 12 is wide open. I think there's an opportunity for some team to take it. I think Arizona State might be that team. I think Scott Frost has got a chance if he can get it going fast. I'm not trying to say that's going to happen. I don't think it is, but somebody's taken that league. I don't think it'll be Dion. I think Dion's, probably going to be there a couple more years, and then he'll go to the NFL, put somewhere in there in the league. So Dillingham, yes. Fish, you've got to find a way to build it and then maintain it. There's actually not a ton of players in the state of Washington. You can probably get 7 to 8 every year out of that state, and you're usually getting a couple of elite players. But you have to go then recruit California, which they did. They've got a really good tackle from California. I think he's a very good coach, and we'll just have to see what happens. I want to go back to the Steelers for a second because I know you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yeah.
The only thing keeping that franchise from falling completely into the ocean is Mike Tomlin. If
that's a little hard.
Here's what I'm going to say. No, and this comes from, I'm a Bears fan, and so this is what I've noticed. If the Pittsburgh Steelers don't build a dome, they will never win another Super Bowl again. They have to build a dome because quarterbacks do not want to play there. And I've watched the Bears go through this for years, playing on the lake. It's a great venue. It's fun. People do not want to play there. Caleb Williams doesn't want to play there. Now he's making nice and saying nice things, but Pittsburgh is going to have to build an indoor facility of some sort, put a roof over it, whatever they got to do, or otherwise the best they're ever going to do is, over the hill Russell Wilson and whatever you want to call Aaron Rodgers.
Because we're boys, I will stand for the slander of you dropping McCaskies and Roonies almost interchangeably. We're going to be okay. I'm taking deep breaths. But
you know what I'm doing? Are the Roonies
Rooney the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th always will be greater in the future than Virginia McCaskey.
I agree with you, but the one of the biggest differences between the two franchises over the last 25 years. Now, if you go the first however many years, the Bears and the Steelers were very, 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 very comparable. I know the Steelers won 4 Super Bowls and the Bears only won 1. But the Bears in the 80s were as good as the Steelers in the 70s. The difference that has been over the last 25 years has been Roethlisberger. And so Ben Roethlisberger was willing to stay there. He's 900 pounds.
The Bears in the 80s were not as good as the Steelers in the 70s. The Bears were good for 3 years in the 80s.
They were good for more than 3. But yes, fair enough. They went to the people can go look this up.
Yes, they can.
Go look it up.
Yes, they can.
If you look up the regular season records from 1984 through 1988. So that's 5 seasons. Look them up
Oh.
and compare it to the Steelers from 1974 to 1979.
Yeah.
I think you're going to 1978. You're going to find them to be very, very comparable.
Yeah, very comparable, except for 4 Super Bowls.
Well, you got to take into account the teams they played.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
You guys beat the Patriots. What are we talking about? Tony
Well,
Eason and
I'm
Sam
saying,
Grogan.
If you take the 84 49ers,
nobody did less with more than the Bears in the previous season and the following season after the Super Bowl.
In 84, they went to the NFC Championship game and they lost to the 49ers.
Yes, they did, Sam, but
one of the 5 best teams of all time.
Not that.
Maybe 10.
Yeah. Okay.
The 84 49ers?
They were good. They were good.
And then in 1986.
The 84 49ers aren't even better than the 94 49ers, and they're certainly not better than the. No, they're not. No, they're not, Sam. No way.
You could make an argument that the best 49er team ever is the 88 team.
That's now that the team that boat raced Denver.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah.
And the 89 team. The 89 team. But
listen, that 94, that team that drubbed the Chargers would hammer that 84 team.
I don't know if that's true, but I'll concede it.
I mean, just simple evolution.
The 49ers. In 1986, they don't play for the NFC title game because they lose to Washington at home with Doug Flutie as the quarterback because McMahon got hurt and they're playing Flutie. They were the number 1 seed that year. The 86 Giants win the Super Bowl, and the 86 Giants were great. In 87, Washington wins the Super Bowl, and they win it by beating the Bears on a Darrell Green punt return. And then in 88, the Bears host the NFC title game, and they lose to the 49ers, who go on to win the Super Bowl. So the reality is the Bears in that era were incredible. And the difference in the last 25 years is Ben Roethlisberger.
Wow, Sam.
And by the way,
difference. And Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is a better coach than anyone the Bears have had. And the Steelers are very lucky to have him. But he is what's keeping that team at 8-8. I mean, if they didn't have him and they had Matt Nagy or the guy that was just with the Bears,
Eberflus,
Eberflus, they would be 4-13.
And by the way, don't sleep on Andre Tippett. By the way, on that New England team.
Okay, Shane.
Shane's a big Andre Tippett guy.
All I'm saying is that
Tippett and Lepet.
Ben Roethlisberger is what was winning them 12 games.
Yeah.
And Mike Tomlin's what's winning.
No. If you'd have said the one thing they share is outside of drafting Roethlisberger, the Steelers are atrocious at drafting that position, like the Bears, I'd have been like, oh, okay, that's true.
But Ben Roethlisberger was there for 15 years. That's my point. They won 2 Super Bowls with him. If they don't have him, they have good players. Don't get me wrong, but they're not winning Super Bowls. And I mean, if you were to rank all the quarterbacks that the Steelers and the Bears have had in the last 20 years, Ben Roethlisberger is number 1. Jay Cutler is number 2. And he was the Bears counterpart. And number 3 might legitimately be Caleb Williams. So, that's how important Roethlisberger was to that franchise.
I mean, Kyle Orton.
I'm definitely not downplaying Ben.
Now that he's gone, Tomlin has to, move heaven and earth to win 8. It's all on him. He has to do it all himself. They've got this.
Know what that's worth?
It's all on him because their quarterback play is awful.
Yeah.
And now it's Aaron Rodgers. And, I mean, nobody knows what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. But can you imagine a culture guy like Mike Tomlin basically saying, well, I have no choice but to hire the total wild card of the league? I mean, Aaron Rodgers might say something next week that alienates his entire team, and no one can stop him.
Can they grow ayahuasca in the Northeast?
I don't think it's at the climate for it.
And again, he's super talented. I mean, Rodgers is a super incredible, one of the most gifted players in NFL history. But he doesn't have a lot left, and he is toxic.
Yeah.
He's just, and he's going to be throwing to A.J. Brown, right?
Yeah.
Not A.J. Brown.
Metcalf.
DK Metcalf, and then the other guy, Pickens. Is he still there too?
No, he's in
Pickens
Dallas.
went to Dallas.
Oh, he left. Okay. That was a good thing, right?
I really think you're trolling me this whole last 8
I'm
minutes.
not.
And I gave you credit on a hole in one with a driver. Like I thought we were in the trust tree, man. Damn.
Because didn't A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf play at the same college? They did, right?
Ole Miss?
No, yeah, DK's Ole
Yeah.
Miss.
Yeah, and so is
Yeah.
AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, I'm not trying to troll you. Like I'm a Browns fan, and here's how bad the Browns are going to be. They decided, well, Joe Flacco's going to be their starting quarterback. You're talking about guys over the hill, but
He's
they're
the new 40, Sam. What are you talking about?
They're trying to make Kenny Pickens their starter, or not Kenny? Yeah,
Kenny Pickett.
This guy from Pickett.
Yeah.
And he's got the smallest hands of any NFL quarterback in history.
Wow.
He can throw the ball about 9 feet.
Former Steeler, Sam.
But I got these tiny.
I had to watch that guy throw with gloves on.
I know, and that's what's going to happen in Cleveland, and the weather's worse in Cleveland, and they're going to be in the snow and all this other stuff, and they're gonna win 4 games next year with a dang good head coach, and maybe the best player in the NFL on defense, and they can't win any games because they don't have any quarterbacks, and I think it's because the quarterbacks don't want to go there. They don't. Why would you want to play on the lake? On grass in frigid temperatures where your stats are going to look like crap.
No, I get it.
Sam
All right,
McKewon,
Sam.
We appreciate the time as always.
That was fun. Bye-bye.
Very inflammatory, but it's all love.
Congrats on the hole in
Take care.
one.
All right,
and,
buddy.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.